this trying to recall her. She knows who I am, and I happen to be a server. So my boss is like, oh yeah, she's coming. Basically, we have a
county commissioner and the county sheriff back in 2016. This is why we came to Harney County to begin with. We had to raise awareness. Sheriff Ward could have protected them. The county commissioners and the state legislators could have protected the Ammon, but they didn't. And so their failure led to the Ammon suffering for 2.5 years. They also tried to say that we were there doing something that was harmful. Testing, testing. Yep. You got a little sound? Yeah! They also tried to say that we were there to do harm and were harming the community, which that was not the case. We were here to do good and to bring awareness and to help the Hammond from suffering unjustly. And we're also here to bring awareness to the unconstitutional control that the federal government has over these lands, and to bring it back into check, and to put the land and the resources back in the hands of the people. And for those of you who are on the fence, who don't understand, I say please read the Constitution. Yes. Please read and understand what our founding fathers set up. That these are sovereign states, and that the sovereignty lies with the people. That we the people, the land and the resources belong to we the people. And we have the right to be free, and we have the right to liberty. And we shouldn't be wrongfully accused and persecuted and prosecuted to the point that we're all suffering. The Hammonds have gone through a terrible process, and we're so glad that it's finally over for them. Yeah. They received justice, and it had to come from the top, but it didn't have to come from the top. It should have happened locally. It should have happened from day one. They should have never been charged. But we're glad it's over. So anyway, we're here today to welcome them home. Are the Hammonds here? Are they coming? Does anyone know?
Probably not.
Well, either way, we're here to celebrate their return. And anyway, so we have some food here, and they've asked me to give the opening prayer or the prayer on the food. So, Father in heaven, we come before thee this day and we give thee thanks for thy many blessings. We thank thee for protecting us and being with us and guiding us through these troubles and trials. We thank thee for the love that thou hast shown. We thank thee for sending thy Holy Spirit to show us the way. We thank thee for this food that is before us, and we ask thee that thou would bless all of those who had a hand in bringing it to us. Father in heaven, we're always in need of thy help. We ask thee that thou would continue to be with us, to lead us, to guide us, and to give us the inspiration, to tell us what to say and what to do in the hour of need. Father in heaven, we ask thee that thou would forgive us of our mistakes and our faults. And we know that we sin from time to time, and we ask thee that thou would forgive us of our sins. Father in heaven, we love thee, and we want to become more like thee, and learn of thee and follow thy ways. We want to be free on this land, and we want to promote our liberty and freedom. And we want all of those to know, all of the world, that we are here to love our brother and to love our neighbor and to love each other. And we ask thee that thou would help promote that love within our hearts and forgive us of any hatred or malice that we have towards one another. Help us to learn to get along and to do good to our neighbor and to our friends and foes. Help us to stand strong when the time is right, to do what is right always, and let the consequences follow. And we know that those consequences will be in accordance to thy will. Father in heaven, we thank thee for the experiences and troubles we've gone through, for they've made us stronger. We thank thee for the refiner's fire, for it has not been comfortable. We know that we have come out stronger and greater and truer. So we thank thee for this refinement. Father, again, we ask thee to bless our wives, our children, our families, our freedom, and our land. And these things we pray in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Bundy for governor! So, I want to say good afternoon to everyone. One of the things that why I'm here. One of the reasons why I'm here because of the fact that what the Bundy stood for the Hammonds, and how the Hammonds land, or first how the Hammonds were unlawfully and prosecuted by the de facto government, and second with respect to their land, to what they own, their ranch. And yet the de facto government wanted to steal what was rightfully owned, what was theirs. They had no right to either sell, transfer, exchange, lease any of the Hammonds' land, or invade any of the Hammonds' rights, constitutional rights, and to the Constitution. One of the things that it's amazing when people come out here, we share a lot of information, tons of information. And for those that are in Oregon and Oregonians, those that have right now fighting with the Bureau of Land Management, the Department of U.S. Forestry, and the Department of Fish and Wildlife, water. Because remember, these criminals, by the Oregon Legislative Investment Council, have they made mineral a privilege. They patented the mineral at their convenience for their corporations like Calico Resource, Barrick Gold Inc. / Barrick Gold Inc. Let's say Uranium One, and whatever corporation they have. So why is this so important? Because today, well, between me and Sean driving around yesterday and the information that we already had and gathered, we knew how these criminals went, how they infiltrated the legislative branch, and Kate Brown infiltrating the executive branch, and now your judicial branch is infiltrated with Anna Akins and Anna J. Brown, and then in your legislative in Congress, you have Ron Wyden, Jeff Merkley, Greg Walden, Earl Blumenauer, Peter DeFazio, all these criminals knowingly and willfully betraying the Oregonians. Now, saying that, you have Kate Brown on the executive branch. Now, Kate Brown's there creating under executive order unconstitutional laws. So, what I'm trying to say to the American people, to the Oregonians and the American people, I'm going to bring you the evidence on how these criminals have betrayed you and your water rights. So, if you know any rancher right now, I'm going to bring you the evidence, and the evidence will be shown to you right now on live stream. So you know any rancher that's fighting for their water rights, I'm going to show you how they perpetuated the crime, and it's going to be easy. And it's up to you, and for those brothers and sisters out there that are fighting for their waters, it's up to you to know the information. So the more ranchers know, the more they become aware, the more they unite and fight, just like when people stood for the Hammonds. And one of the most amazing people that I have to talk to, Julie, come here. So, to a lot of the people out there, this is Julie. For those that barely seen her, Julie did a lot of the legwork behind the scenes in regards to Ryan Bundy. For those that don't know, this is Julie.
Hi.
Now, Julie's amazing. She's done a lot of work, a lot of her homework regarding the water rights, and how they were basically stolen or deprived from the Oregonians by these corrupt, I guess, appointed officials like Stephen E. Grasty and Boyd Britton and Cliff Bentz, Andy Bentz. So I want you guys to see the evidence. Let the evidence speak for itself. You did not create this document, right? You did not alter the document. You just researched the documents, right? Because the water rights.
Which one? Oh. The document that you're I wrote the 65-page document.
Right.
Let me show you what the water laws actually look like.
Okay, so we're gonna show you. All right.
So are you gonna be able to zoom
Yeah, I'm gonna have Tim. Tim.
Are you driving that drone?
So Tim. So for those out there that know that in Oregon that have ranchers that are fighting for your water rights, for their water rights, your water rights, it's time for you to tag as many people. This is the evidence. It's here, and we need to support Julie. And there's gonna be a PayPal coming up for those that want to support the cause. Please donate to Julie, not to me, to Julie. She'll give me the PayPal and I will post it. But for those ranchers right now that in the past, or in the present, or in the future, are having their waters violated, you need to see these documents. Hold on, this is the state seal, right? This is the state seal, this is an official seal, right?
Yes.
This is an official seal by the state of Oregon. So we can't misconstrue any of the information here.
Let's go to the shade where it's a little cooler. So the a certified copy is as good as the original. That's why this is a certified copy. But what people, it's not just about the water rights, but we are going after the water rights.
Let's go this way. So the
So one of the first things, I don't know if you can zoom in on this, one of the first things that the 1909 water law did was they claimed that they have the authority and power to regulate, which means control, the waters of Oregon. But this is on patented land. All this property was patented into private ownership. So we're no longer talking about the waters of Oregon. So on rancher Tom Jones, we're talking about Jones water, not Oregon water. But here's, because the legislature had to be very careful about what they were doing, they had to put in saving clauses. That's for pre-existing rights. And that includes water, and water is listed in those. But the first thing that they did in 1909, when they claimed the right to regulate your water, they said a big but, and that's what subject to means. Existing rights, all waters within the state may be appropriated for beneficial use as herein provided and not otherwise, but nothing herein contained shall be so construed as to take away or impair the vested right of any person, firm, corporation, or association to any water. So now the question is what are these vested rights that they're referring to? Because they're saying that we can control everything except for these vested rights. Well, the vested rights are enumerated in the land patents. These land patents for this land in Oregon were issued by the United States of America. And this is different from United States. You notice up here at the top, it says the United States of America. You see the capitalization on the first letter on every word except for of. If you go to your Articles of Confederation, on page 1 up at the top, under the enactment clause, you will see it says that the name of this country is to be styled, S-T-I-L-E-D, to be styled, and it will quote, and it will have it written just like this. That's your government, okay?
And that was signed by?
This is signed by Theodore Roosevelt, okay? This was issued, this patent was issued in 1907. This was recorded in 1908. The reason for the delay is because they used to have to do this on horseback, okay? So this grants all rights, immunities, appurtenances. Immunities in the 1900s was exemption from tax, penalty, or permits. So this is, if you zoom in here, you'll see in Oregon they require you to have a certificate of your water right. And what you'll see right here is certificate number 299. Yeah, right there. Certificate number 299. This is your certificate, and this is actually, I don't know if you can see it, but this is a certified copy, which makes it as good as the original, okay? And what this says is that all rights were given to Ada L. Miller for this land, and it was patented into private ownership. So it also says that this is forever, and that this goes to her heirs, beneficiaries, and assigns. Now, assigns means a bona fide purchaser. Anybody who purchases this land, these rights, and it says water rights. You've got your mining. Everything is enumerated.
And it's not a privilege. Let me get this straight. It's not a privilege. It's a right.
It's a right.
It's a right. So because the Lewis and Clark Law School tried to call it and convert everything into a privilege, which is all under fraud.
Unconstitutional.
Unconstitutional, de facto government.
So what the state of Oregon is telling this rancher is you have to have a permit. Well, let's look at the definition of a permit. It's an official document authorizing someone to do something. This is an official document. This is signed by Theodore Roosevelt. Okay, the final adjudication, according to the law, is this stamp right here. It's the General Land Office stamp. That's your final adjudication. What that means is that's the end of the story. That's the period at the end of the sentence. That means no more. That's the end, okay? Period. So all of this land is patented into private ownership, except for some exclusions that were retained under federal control. Now, Oregon originally wanted to become a state and was told no. The preceding year, they were told yes. Upon 6 stipulations, the United States of America offered them a contract to accept or decline freely with 6 stipulations, and the people of Oregon, can you give me the notebook and I'll show them. The people of Oregon accepted those 6 stipulations, one of which is that they would never interfere with these patents and that they would never tax the lands. I talked to, here in Harney County, I talked to the Harney County Tax Assessor's Office, and I asked her, I've seen properties here in Harney County be foreclosed on for, honestly, less than $1, okay? But I asked her, I said, for less than $24. And she said, oh, yes. And she said, this is appalling. She said that if you owe back taxes, let's say that you have a lien on somebody's property here in Oregon, and they signed by a judge, and the county forecloses for back unpaid taxes, they make your lien disappear, and they get first claim, and you get nothing. And this is a legitimate lien signed by a judge. They make them magically disappear, and they take their land. Mm-hmm. This is land that they swore they would never tax.
So it's under fraud is basically what they're doing.
It's breach of contract, because when they said we accept these 6 stipulations to become a state, when they started not keeping that agreement, they ceased to be a state.
So basically the BLM, the Department of Fish and Wildlife, the U.S. Forestry, and the DEQ and the Department of Agriculture are basically stealing land from the ranchers to the Sheriff's Department, which they're violating not just their oath of office, but the 1860, what is it? I want to get it straight.
But this is, are you talking about the Admissions Act? 1859.
1859. So let me say 1859.
So if you can look at this, what you'll see is these are the stipulations. This is the offered contract for Oregon to become a state. Okay? This is what they offered them. These are the first, there's the first stipulation. Okay? Can you come over here and hold this so I don't look upside down?
So let's read it a little bit.
Let's look at this. So some of it is, hold it this way. Yeah. So what you're going to see, oh, you got that? Okay. So when you get down to, there's the 4th, the 5th stipulation. Okay. Then in the 5th stipulation, you're going to see that the foregoing propositions herein offered are on the condition. Okay. Every contract has terms and conditions. Mm-hmm. Okay. It's an absolute must for a contract. So upon the conditions that the people of Oregon shall provide by an ordinance irrevocable, that means it cannot be undone, without the consent of the United States, that said state, that's Oregon, shall never interfere with the primary disposal of the soil. That's these patents. These patents are how they dispose of the soil, and that's constitutional. They have to dispose of the soil. They cannot keep it. It has to be given to the people into private ownership. Okay? So then you say here, for securing the title in said soil to bona fide purchasers thereof. That's the assigns. Number 6, and the state shall never tax the lands or the property of the United States. This is property of the United States. Those immunities were attached to the land and conveyed to the assigns, beneficiaries, heirs, and assigns forever. Okay? They are to never interfere. We're still in the never part. Never comes. Okay? Forever is not here. Okay? Now, this is Oregon's acceptance of the 6 terms. Be it enacted by the Legislative Assembly of the State of Oregon, that the 6 propositions offered to the people of Oregon in the above recited portion of the Act of Congress aforesaid be, and each and all of them are hereby accepted. Let me say, anytime there's always a balance to everything. So if there's an offer, the offer is looking for an acceptor, okay? There's no contract without an offer and without an acceptor, okay? So Oregon is the acceptor, okay? And they are saying here, we hereby accept each and all, that's 6 stipulations, and for the purpose of complying with each and all of said propositions hereinbefore recited, the following ordinance is declared to be irrevocable without the consent of the United States, to wit. This is where, be it ordained by the Legislative Assembly of the State of Oregon that the said state shall never interfere. Come down here. The state shall never tax the lands.
So why the taxing the lands?
Well, this is what we call RICO.
RICO and the racketeering.
This is what we call, yes, this is what we call sedition against the United States. They're in breach of contract with the United States. Therefore, it's not possible for them to even be a state anymore because they're in breach of contract. Not only are they in breach of contract with the United States of America, but they're in breach with the people. The people demanded this. These are enacted by the legislature and the people. This is why when you go looking through your water laws, in 1909, they did the surface water, okay?
Right.
In 1955, they claimed authority to regulate the groundwater. But this is why, if you actually read this, okay, if you stop complaining and you actually read this, your answers are in here. There are multiple savings clauses in here. What I mean is, if you look at the section 1, it says they're not to touch them. These are vested rights. Now, the Oregon Water Resources wants you to apply for a vested claim. I'm not trading a vested right for a vested claim. Okay, a claim is a privilege. Okay, that's something you're allowed. These are vested rights. These are impenetrable, irrevocable. They are perpetual.
Not privileges.
Julie, so for those out there that don't understand, can you explain to them the difference between a right and a privilege to those out there?
So the only way that you can get a privilege is to surrender your rights and beg for permission, and you sign a contract, okay? Unfortunately, when you sign a contract with the state, they don't disclose their terms and conditions. For instance, and I can give you, is this live?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, so I can't show it. Actually, I could show you. It's in the car. I have. This is a perfect example. I have a affidavit sworn by the state of Oregon and signed by a state trooper. And they explain in this affidavit that when you apply for a driver's license, you're signing a contract. They don't tell you this. Here's your terms and conditions, and it's all laid out in this affidavit, okay? That applying for the privilege to drive makes you the authorized representative, the registered agent, and the principal. How many of you knew that your driver's license makes you those 3 things, and how many of you don't even know what those 3 things are? Okay? That's what makes it void. But when you surrender your right to travel and you sign a contract making yourself liable to these codes and restrictions, now you have a privilege, and that privilege can be revoked. And that's fully explained in that affidavit, is that you can travel throughout the state of Oregon unrestricted.
Right.
But to be a driver, you're the registered agent, the representative, and the principal, and therefore you're subject to their restrictions. Okay, I got pulled over in Oregon, gave him my passport. The reason I give my passport is because I don't have a contract with Oregon. So it is impossible to drive without a license. It is impossible to practice law without a license. It's the license that converts me talking to you and giving you information and educating you. But if I go get a license to do it, it is converted into practicing law. I don't practice law. I don't drive, I travel. On the side of the road, I gave the sheriff my passport. Why do I think I would give him my passport? Because we are under the law of war, And if you read the Libra Code, you get your safe passage to travel through the states from the Secretary of State. What's the only ID that you can get from the Secretary of State?
Passport.
A passport. A passport is used for traveling. A driver's license is a privilege for drivers. Okay? So I gave that sheriff my passport. And I'll cut the story short. It was a very brief encounter, and I was told to have a nice day. If I was a driver, I would have gave him a driver's license. I would have proved to him that I had a contract with the state and that I had agreed to be restricted.
Now let me ask you this: how many Oregonians do you honestly think that one, understand what you're saying, and two, are aware of what you're saying?
Well, I think that a lot of people are actually aware, but what they're doing is they're saying, well, these are crazy people. They're saying that well, they're sovereign citizens, and they're labeling. And by the way, let me say, if you've been labeled as a sovereign citizen,
you're a terrorist.
Go to any government website. Down at the bottom, you can also Google it, but down at the bottom of their page is called the No Fear Act, and they're required to have that on their website. Click on the No Fear Act. It says that they are not permitted to stereotype you and then retaliate against you. Okay?
But,
so what they do is they try to make people look crazy. And I'm telling you, I think a large percent of people understand they don't have to have a driver's license to travel.
Right.
There's a lot of people that don't want to be harassed and hauled off or beat or their windows knocked out. And I'm telling you now, the side of the road is no place to be dealing with these people, okay? It's not safe, especially you women. Don't do it. But
let me ask you
I
this.
think a lot of people are aware, but they're afraid.
These documents, what are the probability of these documents that you have here, and obviously all the documents that you have in here regarding this? But what I'm saying, well, here's my question to you: how many Oregonians were taught this in school, or were taught just by their local representative?
Zero.
Because I would guarantee you that Stephen E. Grassley might know about this, that Ron Wyden, Greg Walden, Andy Benz, Cliff Benz, Dan Nichols, Pete Runnels, who else is out there? Kate Brown, Jeff Merkley, Greg Walden, Sally Amanda Marshall, that are unlawfully incarcerated at the Hammonds.
These persons know. These state actors, they know. I will say there are some that don't. When I met with the Harney County District Attorney, he didn't know what to say. He told me he had never seen these codes before, which means he's never read the law.
Right.
Okay, he's threatening people with arrest over something he's never even read.
So,
I asked him, he told me he took water law in college, and he said, I did pretty good. He said his teacher was one of the guys who wrote this, but he doesn't even know it.
Right.
And I'm off the floor with him, yes, Joey Lucas. It is embezzlement for you to take a check from the county, from the state, and not know your job. It is unconstitutional. The Constitution of Oregon says that you can be prosecuted criminally for not knowing your job. It is repugnant that they don't know. But these bigger fish, they absolutely do know. They absolutely do know, and they are doing this knowingly and willfully, taking advantage of
hardworking
your rights.
ranchers,
Yes.
Native Americans, God knows who else. I mean, everything in regards to water, because they made water a mineral according to their statutes, because you said about law. So there's a difference between law and statutes and statutory laws.
Did the Hammonds just get that? Is that them?
Where?
Right there? I'm sorry, I know it's live, but I think the Hammonds might have just showed up.
No,
No?
not that I'm aware of.
I know they were coming late. Okay, I apologize.
That's it. So what I'm saying is, their statutes, the Admiralty statutes, through the Lewis and Clark Law School and the American Bar Association and its members, those are not laws. Our Constitution's law,
Right.
Our organic Constitution.
Well, here's the thing: is that the Constitution says that the law of the land. If you know anything about the Constitution, you know that the law of the land is treaties.
Right.
Okay. Let me tell you something. These patents are treaties with the people. These patents are contracts. Treaties are contracts. Okay? So this is constitutional law. They are warring against the Constitution. Okay? And they do it knowingly and willfully. Knowingly and willfully, which makes it, because they're all in this together, that's called RICO. That's sedition. Okay? And they are hurting the people. But the reason that they're hurting the people is because you guys won't read, okay? But let me tell you how statutes come about, okay? They take this enacted law, and you can see it says that it's enacted. Well, I think I showed you that.
You did.
You see the enactment. Every law has to have an enactment clause, be it enacted, okay? Now, once they enact it, then they hand it over to a legislative committee, okay, that they just came up with. And what they do is they start taking these sections and they just cut them. They just take a paper cutter and they just cut them into little pieces. They turn them upside down, they shuffle them, and then they write an Oregon Revised Statute on the back of them, and then they say, there's your statutes. What you guys need to understand is that get your certified copy of the law so that you have the proper order, so that you can stand on your rights. They're right here.
How did you? What would you go about getting the seal?
The Secretary of State is the holder of the seal. Okay, that's where the buck stops.
And that
in Revelations, it talks about the importance of the seals. Okay, and the seals being broken. It's all about the seals. You've got to have the seal. The Secretary of State in each state is the seal holder. Remember, they have to hold the seal in their right hand. It's biblical. That's the Secretary of State. They are also the holders of the record. Anything you need, you can go into the Secretary of State's office. They'll take you to the back. You'll see the original documents. You can actually see the original documents. And that's when you can get a certified copy. And then you have the original documents.
So let me say this to the Oregonians and those from Lewis and Clark Law School and the de facto governments that are currently working under de facto. Did you fabricate, alter any of these documents?
No.
All these came from certified by the State of Oregon Office of the Secretary of State and is signed by Assistant to the Secretary of State.
Yes. Now what they do is they put this. If once you get it, if this is what's called binding, okay? And binding means like a husband is bound to a wife, okay? It's contract, okay? Something has to bind it. So sometimes you'll get, like from the United States, you'll get rivets, okay? And they'll never use little tiny staples like we have. Even if this was only 3 or 4 pages, it would still be a heavy-duty staple. But you can't break this seal. This is actually a seal itself, and it binds.
That's what makes it a legal binding contract.
That's right. That's right. Okay. So, so you never separate this. Okay. And this comes from them this way. Okay. You can make copies of this and certify your copy. All certification is, it says that I certify under penalty of perjury that this copy is exactly like the copy that I have in my possession, and that's all the Secretary of State's doing as well.
Right.
So, and if you look at your codes in whatever state you're in, there is a code where you can certify your own documents. Okay.
Now, to those ranchers and those families that are losing their property to the fraud of taxation and water rights through the Bureau of Land Management, Department of Fish and Wildlife, and U.S. Forestry. What do you tell them, knowing what you know now?
Well, you have, on Monday, this document gets filed into federal court, and this is, here's the plaintiffs, is Dwayne Michael Schrock, Julie Embry, and the people of Oregon similarly situated. So if you're in Oregon, you're actually a plaintiff in this case. This is 65 pages, a document that I wrote. It is bulletproof, and we are going to stop the state from interfering in everybody in Oregon's rights. These are okay. This land was granted before they wrote these, they legislated these 1909 law and the 1955. So there, you cannot, no, in 1909 and 1955. In 09 they claimed the surface water, and in 55 they claimed the groundwater. Well, you can't do that, okay? No, I don't care who you are. You can't do it, okay? You can't write a rule today and it apply to things pre-existing.
Right.
It's impossible. It's like saying that I'm practicing law here. It's impossible because I don't have a license to practice law. It's impossible, okay? You can't write a law that's retroactive. You can't say, well, I saw Laz biting his nail, biting all his fingernails off. Well, tomorrow I'm going to write a law that says that he goes to federal prison for the rest of his life for doing that. Well, you can't do that. You can't make a law for yesterday. You might make a law for today that is good from today till whenever, but you can't go back in time.
And change.
You can't go back in time.
Yeah.
So this is what your pre-existing rights are. And it is an absolute shame that nobody since 1909, when they started raping the people of Oregon, it is an absolute shame that nobody actually read the law.
Let me ask this: if an Oregonian wants to say, "Hey, Laz, how do I get a copy of this document?" Where would they go?
This document, the patent?
The patent.
Well, you'd go to the General Land Office. You can go to the website. It's BLM. You can go to your courthouse. Your courthouse actually has the originals. Okay.
And the county recorder's office.
Yes.
Okay.
And you can
the Secretary of State.
And you can go online. Not the patents. You can go online. You can order a certified copy of your land patent. Okay. As far as getting a copy of this lawsuit, you can download it on pacer.gov. You can do a search. So if you're familiar with Pacer, if you're not, you go up to the top right-hand corner, and that's when you sign in. You make an account. Yes, you have to give a debit card. It costs very little. And then you'll go in. Once you're into the system, and it may take you a week to get your account set up because they have to mail you a password. So once you do that, you always go to query up in the top left-hand corner. You choose your state. Okay, if you do Nevada, you don't go to the ECF. That's your bankruptcy court. So you would click on, in this case, you'd click on Oregon, and then you would do query again, and you would type in either my name or Schrock's name, and it would pull up this case number. And then you'd click on the charging instrument. This is where I'm charging them, and you can download it from there. And you'll actually get, if you open it in preview, then if you do print it out, up at the top of the page, it'll show that it was filed. So you'll have a filed copy, okay? This is, it's 65 pages plus the exhibits, so it may cost you a little bit to download the document. But you can also contact Laz. Laz will get a copy of it before it's filed. Ryan Bundy, he'll have the final draft before it's filed. Jennifer Applegate, if any of y'all know her, she's going to have a copy of it, so you guys can get it through those avenues. And if you have any problems getting a hold of it, of course, I'd like you to learn from it, but not use the document because it's going to be filed. But unless you know how to deal with courts and support the document, I would ask you to not use the document. But it's very educational. You'll see, if you go to the section on making it so easy that a 5th grader can understand, it's only just a couple of things that really you have to grasp. It's very simple.
And by the de facto government, these corrupt government officials, you're already getting some pushback regarding this document right here.
Well, they do not see.
They don't want this.
So they threatened me and Schrock, and said that they were going to press criminal charges. Now, they don't press criminal charges without coming out and arresting you, okay? That's not proper. They're supposed to summon you and then arrest you if you don't come with the summons. But they skip that because they don't care about the law, okay? So they just come out with guns and arrest you.
Like they did with the Hammonds and the Bundys and the Patriots.
So what they did was they said, okay, so we're going to press criminal charges, which means I'm going to arrest you unless you file in court and get a final adjudication. Well, the final adjudication is the seal from the General Land Office, and their codes even say it. And there's your seal right there. That's final adjudication. Okay, but they don't. That's not to their benefit. Okay, they lose if you go by that. So they continue their threats. And
So they expect you to bow down to their tyranny.
yes, but the thing is that we told them you can yield privately or publicly. It doesn't matter to us, but you will. They will yield because they're wrong, and the only way to not be wrong is to be right. And everything in here proves that they are wrong, and so they will have to respond to this. And then the United States has to uphold the contracts. These patents, they have to uphold these contracts. Otherwise, Oregon can't even pretend to be a state anymore.
So this is why these criminals, these corrupt government agencies, that have financial interests, because they also serve in committees. And in these committees is where, under the Oregon Legislative Investment Council, is how they patent the water to make the water mineral. They make a profit of everybody that uses the water. This is why they want you guys to get permits, because they want to know how much water is being used or consumed. And that much money, at the end of the day, at the end of the month, that bill that you get for the water, it also goes to Wall Street. Not just one. Look at your water bill. Now multiply that by how many Oregonians reside in the state of Oregon. And once you understand the math, you'll see how much money, why the corporations are registered in Wall Street. And why they're either Fortune 100, a Fortune 200, or Fortune 500. No different than Barrick Gold Inc. and Calico Resource, because they're on Wall Street. Why do you think Barrick Gold Inc. is right there in front of the Capitol? On 101 Constitution.
And here's the thing: is that these patents say all rights. I asked the Harney County Commissioner, Mark Owens, in the last meeting that I had with him. I said, once the United States of America gave all rights to the owners in this patent, how many rights are left over for the state of Oregon? After all are dispensed, how many are left over for the state? And he said none. So that means the state of Oregon doesn't have any right to tell anybody that they can or cannot turn on their water.
So they're doing this under the shadow government, the deep state with Donald J. Trump is fighting. Because at the end of the day, this is all racketeering under RICO.
It is. And you know, under RICO, if you're caught being a part of RICO, that's racketeering, you lose everything. Private, everything that you own can be taken. So I caution the state actors, because the gig's up. The gig is up.
The gig is up. And
that should be our hashtag.
Yeah, the gig is up. And we should put Kate Brown's face and Greg Bolden, Jeff Merkley, Greg Bolden, Andy Benz, Cliff Benz. I mean, matter of fact, one of the reasons these criminals passed, and I don't know if you're aware of that, they passed a House Bill 2838 to go after veterans. I didn't write this law, create or fabricate it. I would like for you to go to the Oregon legislation, and under House Bill 2838, they are targeting veterans. I didn't write it. I strongly advise those veterans that live within the state of Oregon to look up the legislative bill, HB 2838. I'll say it again, HB 2838. You are a veteran. You want to see this bill. You want to read this bill, and you want to understand what it's saying, and who created it, and who wrote it, and who passed it. A strong advice I can give to all the veterans out there in the state of Oregon.
Well, Les, too, I want to say that a lot of people wonder how this happened to us. And the answer is because you're not paying attention, okay? How many years have gone by since 1909 to today that you guys in Oregon didn't read this, okay? This should not wait for Julie to come to town and say, hold on. You can't wait for Laz to find out about something and tell you about it. That website, the Oregon legislature has a website, and you can track bills there. You can find out what's going on. What are these criminals doing today? What are they proposing? You can tell it. I want to track that. You'll get notifications every time something happens with that bill. okay? This is your responsibility. You cannot rely on people like Ryan Bundy, Shauna Cox, Julie, Laz. We can't do everything. You guys have to be the overseers. These are your servants. Act like a master.
Yeah.
It's that simple. You've got to track this stuff. Because if you wait for us, I mean, you could wait forever. I mean, we don't know what your particular problem is. The answers are out there. It's your duty and responsibility as an American to be watching these people. And nobody's been watching.
And to those out there that are fighting for water rights, having your land stolen by the defective government through taxation, or the BLM or the Bureau of Land Management, Department of Fish and Wildlife, I ask you this simple question. When has Ron Wyden, Jeff Merkley, Greg Walden, Earl Blumenauer, Cliff Bentz, Andy Bentz, Kate Brown, Sally Amanda Marshall, Stacy Beckerman, who else is in this criminal Lewis and Clark Law School, Anna J. Brown, Anna Akins, when have they come over here and actually defended for your constitutional right, for your water rights, for your land, to be free? Why haven't they educated you? And if they haven't educated, then what is the purpose of them not educating you? Who is profiting from these crimes that are being perpetrated against you? Because at the end of the day, it's like Julie said, we could be gone tomorrow. So who's going to step up and take the fight? So to the Oregonians out there, all we did was brought out the evidence. As I always say, let the evidence speak for itself. Stand up for your rights, because one day again, when most of us are gone, are you going to have the tenacity to stand up for your rights? Are you going to have the tenacity to stand up for your grandchildren, or your great-grandchildren, or just for you? I mean, right now they are targeting your veterans. Those that served overseas, they are being targeted under HB 2838. Why are they doing that? So it's up to you.
Battery's going down.